Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the IDA meeting for January. Appreciate your time. Does everybody know Noel Goodspeed? Have you had a chance to meet Noel? Noel is going to be joining us from now on as a board member. And Noel's going to be on the LDC board. And we're gonna make some changes there, and I'm going to appoint Wayne to be on the IDA board to take Andy Matviak's place for the time being. And the next time we have an opening on the LDC, you will rotate on the IDA, you will rotate onto the IDA board and so forth. The LDC is where we do the majority of our lending, all of our new lending is going through the LDC anyway. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello.
So it'll get a little convoluted, but we'll get through it. So welcome. And welcome, Wayne.
Thank you.
Glad. Okay, can we start off, since this is our annual meeting, we have to start off with election of officers. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's the vice chair, to take care of that.
All right, thank you very much. And so on our tablets, we do have the annual housekeeping resolutions. Jim called the meeting to order, and now we move into the selection of officers. The first one would be to nominate a chairman. In the past, Jim has done it for 30 plus years.
This is my
probably.
30th year.
Yes, okay, so he's got it down, he knows how to do it. And if anyone would like to nominate him to be the
I
chair.
nominate him.
I'll second it.
Okay, look at that, you got railroaded in Delhi.
Yeah, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Jim, you're chairman,
Thank you.
and back to you.
I will gladly take it, and like I said before, this is 30 years for me. And I'll finish out the 30 years. It's kind of a milestone in my mind. But I feel that we have to address the situation on the board and think about the longevity of the board as we go forward and have some discussions during the year. So I fully intend to step down as chair and probably step down from the IDA board in December of 2024. And so at year end, we'll make some changes, but just be aware of that. But in the meantime, we'll have some fun for 12 months. Well, we have to, next we have to have nominations for vice chair.
Scott.
Second. What did I do to you?
Any other nominations? All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Wow, another unanimous one. We need to have a nomination for the secretary, who is George.
I nominate George.
Second.
Any other nominations? All in favor? Opposed? And we need to nominate a treasurer, who is Bruce currently.
I nominate Bruce.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Glenn, is part of our bylaws change, you talked about establishing a deputy secretary or assistant secretary.
Assistant secretary. So basically, you want to do the jump into the bylaws now before we do, you don't need to turn that. before we do the housekeeping resolution?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just jump into the bylaws. So, on in the board packet, there were some proposed amendments to the bylaws on both the IDA and LDC. This started out, there's not much there, but it started out solely at Sean's recommendation that he went to an IDA conference that with how big of an issue housing has become, not just in Delaware County, but across all upstate New York, well, the whole country, I guess, really. It was recommended there that IDAs and LDCs consider adding housing to one of their potential areas of focus, given that there are, certain constraints on what we can and cannot do as an IDA anyway, as it relates to housing, but still that having it in the bylaws, both under the IDA and the LDC, when projects arise that are beneficial, especially when they're focusing on workforce housing, that kind of gives us the credence to go ahead and support those projects. So that started out with just that little 6-word addition, or 7, I guess. Oh, and I apologize for my voice. I've been out sick all week. Including the development of new housing initiatives into that first paragraph. Oh, yeah, thank you. But then I did, ask Tab and Sean to look through the bylaws to make some other changes. There's always cleanup that can be added and everything like that. The ones that I made mostly relate to making sure that our normal operating office procedure, as it's evolved over time, is in lockstep with our bylaws. So the assistant secretary is technically a new position. In the past, it's always been recording secretary, but assistant secretary is like the proper public authority name for it. And it just, so we've always had a recording secretary, so it's kind of a name change, but it also more firmly establishes what the Tabitha has always been the recording secretary. Well, has been serving as the recording secretary. It's up to you guys if she does in the future. Oh, you're not Tabitha, she left. Okay.
She was sitting here.
Okay. Now I'm still coming down off of the medicine. Yeah. Anyway, just what she does on a normal basis, serving in that role as a recording secretary, and just more officially establishes it. When we do our pilot resolutions, it always speaks to the assistant secretary having specific roles. Previously our appointments would cover that, our recording secretary is our secretary, but this is just more formally established. Same thing with some changes under the treasurer, is just that with myself and Tabitha as CFO, at least in the past, doing the majority of the day-to-day financial management work on behalf of the treasurer. This just kind of makes that clear that it's in conformance with our bylaws. So there were some changes like that just to
Glenn,
Yeah.
in section 5 of the treasurer, one thing I want to point out is that generally, if we require 2 signatures, that's only for our own use. The banks will not monitor that.
right.
So as long as we understand that we're the one who has to monitor that, no one is going to make sure of that other than us.
Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
Because that's then a liability on us.
right.
All right.
Yep.
Is that part of an internal audit procedure that we might go through or have gone through?
Yeah.
Verification of.
Yeah.
Right, but if we're going to go one signature, we have to change our policy
Yes.
to
we
address
would.
that.
And then we didn't.
Then we won't be in violation in an audit.
No, well, right now you are doing 2
Yeah.
signatures.
Oh, yeah, we've been doing 2 signatures for the last 10 or 15 years.
Okay,
Anything over 5,000.
it's just no one's gonna check
Yeah,
that,
the bank
but us.
doesn't, the bank
Banks
doesn't
doesn't
say,
care.
oh, we can't cash this because there's only one signature on it. It's just a self-policing mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you don't wanna self-police at that level, we could discuss changing that level.
Yeah, I thought about changing it from 5 to 10, but it's not that big of a deal. You know, it used to be a bigger deal when it was just myself, the chairman, and the treasurer who could sign. Because that meant our part-time officers had to be available, you
Right.
know, on very short notice. Now that we have a staff member who's also authorized to sign, that clears it up.
Okay.
Now, Jim is probably available 90% of the time anyway. But in those few instances when he's not, well, then Sean's available to do it.
Okay,
So yeah, so there's those minor changes under there, just some quick things under, our annual meeting, our bylaws said it was supposed to be before the 15th of January. Since we moved to the fourth Friday of the month, it hasn't been that forever, so
So should we
Just change it.
the date?
yeah, so I just said it, our annual meeting in January.
Yeah.
And then with special meetings, and then notice of meetings, it was basically because we're electronic now. You guys don't get mailed board packets to you, you know? So it was just making sure that that's, you know, in compliance. And that was really all the changes I had. Although Wayne had mentioned one cleanup item as well, if you wanted to mention that.
No, it's just, it mentions a first chairman in section 7, I don't know which page it's on. Election of officers, and I was confused as, at some point, was there a first chairman? Or, and Glenn basically said that was based on the first chairman ever to exist at which would be Jim, right, I'm assuming? So in
No.
section 7, it talks at
I'm not that old.
all officers except the first chairman shall be elected at the annual meeting of the agency. So it doesn't need to be in there anymore, I guess is my point.
Right, yeah, that was for the very first meeting ever. So,
Right.
yeah,
I was
So
right,
it-
didn't-
yeah, so.
I just didn't know if there
agree with
was some
Wayne, we
point
should
was a
just-
first chairman in addition to
Yeah.
the chairman.
We should just strike that to make it clear that all officers are elected at the first annual meeting. So yeah, so I'll make that change as well.
Okay.
And those were my proposed changes for the bylaws.
So we need a resolution.
Yep.
With that motion, with the changes discussed.
Have a second, please.
Second,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Glenn, shall I go back? I jumped to this because I thought we had to elect an assistant secretary, but,
Position like the.
okay, all right.
The ones that are.
So, do you want to, and I'm sorry, I've screwed up your agenda now. Do you want to go back?
Not a rule,
You want to go back to the housekeeping resolution?
sure.
Okay,
So the annual housekeeping resolution, most of the action items there are covered in the separate packet of policies that are administrative policies that we review on an annual basis. Code of ethics, compensation, retaliatory action, travel, property acquisition, property disposition, procurement, investment, and indemnification. I didn't propose any changes to any of those policies. And then but they do have to be reviewed and reapproved annually. And then the Schedule A has kind of like the business items, establishing our regular meeting schedule, which I'm proposing to remain as the fourth Friday of each month. The election of officers. Okay, sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. So then appointment of executive officers. Some of these are by function, and some of these are by public authorities, law. Or at least recommendations that the agency has a chief executive officer, a chief financial officer, a contracting officer. So chief executive and chief financial, they're self-explanatory. Contracting officer, that's really, while it could cover any type of contracts per public authorities, it really refers to contracts referring to the purchase or sale of real estate. Internal controls officer is what it is, making sure we're following through with our financial best practices, management best practices. Investment officer, if we have any invested in funds to invest, which is a discussion for later. Awesome. Procurement officer, then executive director and assistant secretary. You know, those are not PAA things, those are IDA things that are in like the enabling statutes of IDAs. They're kind of leftover officers. The executive director is really same as chief executive officer. Then the assistant secretary, which used to be recording secretary, again, those are more IDA related than PAA related. Then our accounting firm, which is Mostert, Manzanero and Scott. This is our last year of contract with them, so we will be RFPing that after the audit for 23. Appointment of lead agency counsel. It outlines the two different attorneys we prominently use and their specific roles under that. Appointment of bond counsel, our bank accounts, the policy approvals. And then committee appointments for governance committee, audit committee, finance committee. So typically the way we run, a lot of IDAs, every IDA runs a little differently, all in compliance with the law. A lot of them have a very strong committee system where basically everything's decided in the individual committees that meet on a monthly basis individually. We've always had the more of a board authority process, and our committee meetings essentially occur during our board meetings, which is perfectly fine. And then it opens up to full board discussion. I just think it's a better way to do it. And then administrative matters, this is just a new one. Again, it's trying to clarify and reiterate that our day-to-day operating procedures in terms of the management of the agency, both in terms of, overall management and specifically financial management. Those day-to-day duties are delegated to the CEO and the CFO under the direct authority and oversight of the chairman and treasurer. So it's just, again, reiterating that the way we operate is okay. And that's all I have on that.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the resolution, the housekeeping resolution? And a second, please.
Second.
Yes.
Second.
And we have to do a voice vote on this. We'll start it out, but Jim Thompson, yes. Scott,
Yes.
George is not here today. Bruce,
Yes.
Michael Bryan.
George.
Yeah.
Hey, George,
George, how are you?
you're just in time.
Rita wouldn't be here either. She was gonna bring me.
Farita's on the computer screen.
Oh,
Yep.
Farita, how do you vote on this? Wayne?
Hi.
Okay. George, we're doing a voice vote on the housekeeping resolution that we pass every year. Okay.
yes.
Florida, okay. we have a quorum that voted for it, so that's, oh,
Microphone.
yeah,
Yes,
I did, Mike.
I haven't seen it yet.
Did I skip you?
No, you left me and I voted yes.
I thought, okay. Thank you. The, now we need to review the tax exemption policy.
Yeah, the tax exemption policy relates to our policy regarding, pilot agreements. And also to a certain extent, bond agreements as well. There's a couple provisions that relate to those. I didn't propose any changes to that from in the past. Our current guidelines, have operated well. You know, we've probably last changed them, actually made changes to them probably 5 or 6 years ago to be in compliance with public authorities law. It has the applicable recapture provisions if there's non-performance. And then it establishes our administrative fees, which again are customary and standard across the board through IDAs across the state. And then our percentage exemptions for the different types of projects, whether they be industrial or non-industrial. And again, you know, nothing's really changed there. Just like to reiterate that our policy has always been and continues to be that when we do enter into these types of agreements, we don't take revenue away from taxing jurisdictions. We only phase in new revenue over time. We're not taking money away. It's just a point that I think sometimes gets lost.
Okay, I have a motion to accept the tax exemption policy.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, thank you. The board goals and self-evaluation.
Yes, so this is a new item for us. It came as part of our work to come into compliance with our website this year. It was a requirement that we had done once and then skipped over in subsequent years. We have to review this on an annual basis. Basically, it does two purposes: sets our goals for the next year and then evaluates our performance of what we believe we've accomplished in the preceding year. So in terms of our goals, what this points to is, I have the wrong one up. I have the LBC one up, sorry. Or did I? Oh, no, I just have a typo in it. I apologize for that. So performance goals for the IDA: work with local municipalities to address infrastructure related issues to support business development and community sustainability. You know, just infrastructure is a broad term. I read it broadly. One of the things that I believe that does is, in addition to what you normally think of as infrastructure, would be like community development type initiatives like Main Street revitalization programs and stuff like that, just for edification. Assist in the development, redevelopment of sites, provide targeted incentives and financial assistance to support businesses, and work collaboratively with partners to develop and implement projects to support industry sectors. I think those are the goals and objectives that the IDA should focus most heavily on, is working directly with businesses, working with communities, and then the development and redevelopment of sites. I think that should be our core focus, and it tends to be what I plan on focusing on through the coming year. And to just limit the types of projects we get involved in to make sure that we're focusing on those main areas. and avoid getting caught up in other stuff.
And so you added housing in another area, would that?
I would-
show up
I would
here,
count
or
that,
is
so-
support?
In my opinion, again, I said I tend to read things a little broad. So workforce development housing, in my mind, is infrastructure for
Okay.
business expansion, you know.
So there's no need to specifically mention
I
it.
mean, we could if you want,
No.
I prefer to keep things broad so we don't lock ourselves in. You know, a perfect example of that is not something I'm gonna mention in public session, but there's, you know, we've been working with a business who's a large business whose primary obstacle for growth is the availability of housing in the area for workforce development housing. So
So it's all part and parcel to what. we're
that's a
doing.
necessary component of what makes them be able to remain here.
Okay, thank you.
So do we need an approval of that?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I guess that's it on our
That should do it
housekeeping.
for the annual meeting.
Made it. Okay, I need approval of the minutes of December 8th and the minutes from the special meeting on December 22nd that we had by phone.
On the special meeting on the 22nd, I'm moving to the absent, and then in the minutes, I'm making motions.
I like that. How did you do that?
It was sleight of hand.
The fan. Okay, we will make some changes for you. Kind of motion to accept the minutes subject to Mike's changes.
So moved.
Second,
Cause you didn't make that motion.
Hmm?
Yeah, I just
Second.
mislabeled you, sorry.
I was on the phone with the rest of you.
Yes, I was over anxious in my cutting and pasting. I apologize for
Okay,
that.
no problem.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Glenn, you want to do the treasurer's report? I know that's what your voice doesn't need.
No, that's fine. I know it's everybody's favorite. So on the treasurer's report side for the IDA, I have nothing, specific to add to what was presented to the board. Same on the LDC side. The LDC side, you know, shows the new IRP 5 money coming in. And, what we have remaining to draw down on agri lending. I have nothing specific to add there. Moving on to the loan report. Number 3, I was promised that this would be made current before this meeting. But it wasn't. So I will continue to work with her on that. Number 9 has fallen a little behind. So number 3 is an annoyance, not a financial risk issue. And what I will just have to be a little bit more forceful. Number 9, I hadn't had a chance to follow up with Sean on this. I've been meaning to get out to them to see what's going on with their. Again, they've had slowness in the past. But when you get to 3, now you're just beyond slowness. So we will be getting out to reach with them. 13, 14, and 15,
Wait a minute, stop on
Yep.
12 for a minute.
12, yes.
The notes in the far right hand column. We're gonna take that action.
That's my recommendation, yes. There weren't sufficient funds to cover the full amount.
By just that amount. That was the only deficit. is
Yes,
What's here.
yes,
Okay.
out of the full amount, yes.
That's real good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought that was a win.
Yeah, yeah. Now 13, 14.
13, 14, 15 is still a mess. The chairman has been in contact with a potential buyer. There's potential there. It's, just how deep the bath is gonna be.
Okay.
But, we just,
Thoughts on that for the audit and how much we write down,
yes, yeah, so it doesn't all hit.
right?
Right, because we went into that with our eyes open and, we did our role and sort of, and we did what we could. Number 16 is an ongoing situation. We are following, there'll be more on that later in more depth discussion. Number 19 was just a returned payment from last month. We will recoup that. It just, there's a while before we're informed, then we got to get in touch. His January payment was made, it was just a lapse and we'll get caught up on that, but just showing that it was there.
Number 24. Why don't we take a judgment?
What's that?
Why don't we take a judgment?
Yeah, so number 24 and number 5 are ones that we're gonna be yes, taking legal action on.
Yep.
Number 11, so now onto the LDC loan report. Number 11, I've been in communication with. We've issued a notice of default. We got his full attention on that. Some of the areas included tax delinquencies and things of that nature that we prioritized, as well as insurance on the building, which has always been there. That was just a rumor that wasn't necessarily true, a misunderstanding, however you want to say it. The tax issues are being addressed. I just spoke with him again this morning. Tax issues are in progress of being addressed. He did throw out a proposal to come to return to making payments. Not necessarily full payments, but it would be a partial payments that would cover interest and part of principal.
So on that, let's get our principal back first, so that we can fish again. Let's get our bait back. If we don't make any interest, okay, but let's get our principal back.
Okay.
So when you're applying those partials, let's see if we can't put all of it to principal to start with.
Yeah, so just a little bit more on this. So our loan balance with that, we're in a partnership with the Village of Sydney on this. We have co-equal first mortgage on it. So the debt is twice what shows up on ours, on the building, which he's put a significant amount of money in. So we've got very good collateral position on it. It is currently on the market and being looked at
What's it listed for?
sale.
In the 2s, in the 1?
No, I thought it was 300.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's a good building and it has apartments above.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is he making an agreement with the village?
So where we're working is, I'm working with him on behalf of the Village of Sydney. We're gonna try to come to an agreement. The agreement is he would pay slightly more than half of the payment that's due to us, half the payment that's due to Sydney each month for 3 months. After that, we'll reassess to how much higher we're gonna go.
Good.
Hopefully, it'll approach or be at full payments within 90 days. And then we'll continue on that as he's still trying to market it. But he went from taking 3 weeks to return a call since the receipt of the letter, 3 weeks to return a call to like an hour to return a call. So we have his attention.
Yep.
Which is the point.
Number 20.
Number 20, Tab's been in contact with them. He had, we had granted him a brief deferment. He did not come back to making full payments. He came back at a lower level. So we're counting his deferment now as a past due because he didn't come back to making full payments. So we are working with him. He is making monthly payments. Over time, he'll work off that balance.
We have a really good guarantor.
We have a great guarantor.
Has the guarantor been notified?
No, that would be the next step. So I'm working with Tab on that one.
Okay.
Number 30, 33, 34, 35. There was an issue earlier this spring, early spring, March, April, was probably February, March, April, May. Non-sufficient funds each time. We're clearing that up, but again, until he clears it up, we're showing it as full amount due.
Good.
PKE, we're just, we can't find anybody to serve. We have already done a private investigator who found it. We send stuff there, but, you know, it's a non-local address now. It's
Right.
become difficult, so, I'm not sure. I'm not ready to give up yet, but that would be on my list of quite at-risk loans.
Okay. Motion to approve as presented.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Is there some percentage that would be a ballpark number where we should be looking at as a percentage of the total? Mr. Baker?
Glenn and I are arm wrestling over that number.
We're working on that, so
And he
I'll
is
throw
making
out,
progress.
I had put out
So I
some,
figure he is, but if there was a number that every month we heard, okay, this is the percentage today.
I could do that, I could. do that.
That's all I would ask for.
So these are, and Scott and I,
Or we could wait
These
till
are
after the
open
thing
for-
in East Branch is done, and then that would make the number look a lot better, I suppose.
Much better.
I brought the wrong
Both
thing.
on numbers and on volume. We have to look at it.
Yeah, I'm living with that.
Yep, I brought,
Let's get this rejected for later. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but.
yeah, no, Scott, I just don't have it with me, but so metrics that I had kind of thrown out there that Scott and I need to discuss is 10% number, no, portfolio wide, having by number of loans, 10% or less be late any given month. By portfolio value, 5% or less any month. Then for at-risk ones, and now at-risk ones would be not necessarily all our late ones, but our late ones where we're having difficulties and or our collateral position makes us very much at risk.
So one is a collection risk and the other is a principal loss risk.
Yes, yeah, so that would be 5% or less by number, 2.5% or less by portfolio value. That's what I threw out. I haven't heard Scott's counter yet. I'm sure I will over the intervening days. But yes, that's what I would propose we use as a metric, and I would report on that each month as to how our report holds up to that.
For the middle here, is there any statutes on what that needs to be?
No. No,
So we can have a delinquency ratio of 50%.
yes, absolutely, yeah. And if you look at other counties, that's not unheard of. Yeah,
A little different than the world I came from.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, but that's
Guys are
because,
ready for a real eye opener.
but that's because we're dealing with all the people you said no to. So, you know, you guys said no to them for a reason. That's the truth of the matter. So. There's more to come on that. Oh, maybe we should get, no, I didn't put that on there. When did you, sorry, I got signed out again. When did you guys want to, oh, I'm sorry, we were still talking about
We're good.
that.
I'm good.
When did you guys want to have the interest rate discussion?
Might as well jump in.
Okay, let me get logged back in so I can just climb up on my soapbox for a moment. Oh, thank you. I love this new computer, but it locks you out if you don't touch the keyboard every 30 seconds.
You can change those.
No, not in Delaware County. And then it's a
It's in setting.
yeah, but I don't have
Where,
access to my
IT.
settings.
Keeping our boxes 30 seconds.
That's called
You
group
don't do
policy.
nothing, it makes the screen for you. You're afraid you walked away from it.
Yeah, and then we've got a dual factor verification system to get back in. So you should be comfortable that our files are fairly secure, yes. Okay, so I worked on this week when I was trying to come into the office. Wednesday and Thursday, I only made half days. I'm not sure how good I was. So Lindsay, get me back to where I need to be. I don't want to be here.
She doesn't want to touch your keys.
What, my drive? There it is. Okay,
I'm already sitting next to him, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little.
so in terms of the interest rate discussion, I meant to send out a board that I added some stuff to the IDA annual meeting drive for that. So I know there are, you know, market interest rates are much higher than what we are offering at currently. But you know, if you listen to all the talk, those are gonna be coming down over the coming year. And, you know, we really only establish our interest rates on an annual basis. So.
Is that a rule or is that by choice?
By my choice.
No.
So here's the thing. We're not set up as a bank. We sort of function as a bank. We don't have the staff to handle constantly fluctuating rates. We could, but it just lends itself to the creation of potential avenues of confusion and stuff like that. So for convenience, maybe, you know, that's it. We can talk about what it should be or not be. But a couple things as to concern expressed about our margin. So the majority of the funds that we have, I didn't do the total on it, are funds that we've borrowed from either the state or federal government. We borrow money at 1% interest. So let's talk with our IRP programs. We borrow money at 1% interest. We relend it at 4%, and we live off that margin to be able to handle any losses or things like that. One of the things that's not very big, I understand. However, one of the benefits of our operation is that the way economic development is set up in the county, staff for the IDA and LDC are donated by the county. So all costs related to our salaries and staff supplies and the equipment that we use and supply, all that is provided through the county at no charge to, either of the entities. So for that, we don't need as big of a margin as other entities do. And so the purpose of that status of borrowed funds portfolio spreadsheet is to show that over time, we do have a track record of being able to survive off that margin and actually, so I'll give it as an example for the IRP1 fund. We started that, I forget the date, but we only have 11 payments left out of 33, so do the math. 24 years ago, I guess. Excuse me, so we started, that fund was at 350,000, 300 from the loan and 50,000 that we invested. Despite the fact that we have paid, 185 of that back to the federal government or already, our fund total is still $303,000. So we're covering, and we have 11 more payments to make on that, annual payments to make on that. And so by the time we get through this IRP, what it started at is gonna be at least what it ends at. And so we will have gotten, the agency will have obtained through the management of the use of funds, $300,000 to continue that fund in perpetuity without, a debt associated with it. And so over time, our coverage for the IRP1 is 2.63 of what's owed on it. So, we're able to cover our debts. And if we had to stop right now, we could pay that off today and still have money left over to continue the fund. And it builds up slowly because our margin is so small, but we have a 30-year note to build that up. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to do that. Yes, sir.
Would the federal government reduce the rate as the rates come down, as most professionals are educated, particularly the stock market, they're gambling big time that the rates are gonna fall this year. What time, I don't know. I don't think they know either. Would that affect the 1%?
Now, we're 1% fixed, 1% fixed, no matter what happens to it.
Okay.
So how do we compensate for our bad loans and at-risk ones where we're gonna lose that money? Right.
So we've done that in a couple of ways. We don't make we manage our risk in what loans we approve under the use of those portfolios. So right now, I'm not saying we don't take chances under the use of those portfolios, but we only take chances when we have A1 collateral.
Right, but there's always a chance that a business who's been strong for 10 years, all of a sudden isn't anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And, even though maybe they had good collateral or whatever, the at-risk becomes very high because of other debt they've taken on or loss of contract or product.
Right.
And
So we
they're
try
not in the
to
same
manage
position.
it. We don't do loans over 10 years. So that helps a little bit.
Right, that helps some, but, a perfect example is what happens to a lot of these businesses when COVID hit. They went to almost zero income, some of them. When the government helped, but that was no way near enough to cover their debts. And a lot of them businesses aren't ever gonna come out of COVID. They still may be in business and they might be struggling, but they're never gonna make it, some of them. So we're gonna see a huge loss in business. And hopefully it's none of the people that we've dealt with, hopefully for their sake, but it's still a strong possibility.
The question, let's take that first one, 350,000. We're paying 1% on that over 30 years, and we're collecting sometimes 4.5% out of that. And let's say there's a 10% loss. there's a $35,000 loss on this thing. How do we account for that? Is our 3% net? I mean, we're still paying back the 350 plus 1,
Right.
whether we lose or not.
Right,
That's the question.
right.
Yeah.
Should we
Right.
make a
Okay.
Yeah, but so what I'm saying now is we have we have, let's stick with IRP one. I'm trying to see how I want to make this argument, but I'm not thinking that well, so I'm just gonna keep throwing stuff out until something sticks. So we have $164,000 out on IRP one. If all of those fail, we still have $139,000 available right now to pay off the $115,000 that we owe.
Where's the money available from?
It's sitting in our bank account right now, and we maintain a reserve account.
So
We
never,
retain a loan loss reserve account of 8% of our outstanding loans.
okay,
We could carry a higher one. I was actually thinking about that. Maybe we want to make sure that our loan loss reserve is sufficient to cover an annual payment, 2 annual payments. You know, we can talk about making sure we cover more there. So, you know, so for IRP one, we have IRP in our, on our treasurer's report. We have IRP one, then we have IRP reserve. Those funds just sit there. That's not coming, we don't make new loans out of the IRP reserve account. That just stays there, make sure we have 8%. We can change that to a higher figure to make sure we have at least 1 annual payment in there. You know, so that if there was a catastrophe, you know, we can make that annual payment and then just manage the portfolio to make sure that we continue to build it up over time.
I get it. So we never did put out the whole 350,000. We kept 8% back.
Yes, you
Okay.
by statute, we're supposed to keep 6%. And we keep 8%. We can keep more than, well, yeah, we could be more conservative if we wanted.
Is that fair interest, the reserve?
Yes,
Yeah, historically, how long have we been at 4%? I'm just curious. Oh,
we went up to 4.5%.
At one time.
Yeah.
2000, when was the last time there's a big rate increase? Was it the housing crisis?
2011.
07, 08.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the rates came down 9 and 10. So
Yeah.
I would say we've been at 4 for 10
10
years.
years.
10 years.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm just, let me just keep going, because my thought process is weird sometimes, but we went through COVID, to your point. What was our delinquency rate, or how the best way to measure our additional cost related to loans during COVID?
Well, during COVID, we carte blanche granted everybody a 6-month
That's right.
deferral. And then on specific cases, we were willing to entertain extended deferrals. So everybody has come back from
Okay,
COVID.
and I guess my point is we went through various mechanisms that you guys use. We went through a period where we had a 4% rate for an extended period of time. And we went through, I don't know if it's one of the worst periods, I don't know if it was, but it was
It was
pretty
just a
bad.
bad
for
period.
COVID. Yeah, just a bad period. And we still have, from a financial standpoint, we're still in a pretty good place with regards to covering that. So I guess I'm trying to understand the additional risk or the additional costs that we're incurring, but I didn't realize the county was paying for our fine staff. So that's, to me, I don't know why we'd make a change at this point, but that's just my.
Well, can I ask a question on that? If we had number one, do we restrict the funds that we lend out?
Restrict them in terms
In
of,
terms like, let's say I'm building a building, do you verify that the building's built?
oh, yeah.
Cause I ask because like I could take that money and invest it at a higher rate that I'm borrowing it at, which is,
It has to be for a business purpose, yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And then if we do make a higher margin, isn't that money going back into the pool to help other potential borrowers?
Mhm.
Well, and that's the key there. It gives us more loaning capacity.
Right. And I'm glad we got to that, because now I'd like to bring up my second spreadsheet of neighboring and similar sized counties.
Yeah.
So,
Segue.
yes, that is an awesome segue.
Right into it.
Yes, so, we by far have the lowest interest rates of neighboring or, similarly sized counties, except for Wyoming County. And I'll use that, I think they're a good example of what we do. So, we're at 4%, everybody else is 75% of prime, or 6.5% is Cortland. CWC is at 5.25, Green's at 5.25. And none of them make any loans. They have these funds and they don't use them. And in my opinion, that's why we took a $1.5 million hit to our assets in 2018-19, because all these other counties weren't using their loan funds.
Yeah.
So the state said, you're not using them as how you're supposed to be. Everybody give them back. And my argument that we were doing it right, even though they agreed, they're like, nope, if we're doing it from one, we're doing it from everybody. And so I just, last year with our lending, we made 15 loans to support over $5 million of new investment, creation of 8 new businesses, created 42 jobs and retained 20 jobs. And I think if it would be my goal to match this every single year. I would think that should be a target for us. Absolutely. If I said we were gonna support or incentivize a $5 million project every year in Delaware County that was gonna create 42 new jobs, how would you guys rate me on job performance?
Very good.
You'd say, yeah, you're doing your job. So we're doing that through our loan portfolio. And as long as we continue to manage it well, and, we take prudent risks, we'll be able to have that impact and yet maintain our fund in perpetuity. And that's my argument. And, these other counties that don't, offer a rate, they're not utilized, and also they don't focus on this. Look at Broome County, they have we have a bigger loan portfolio than Broome County, which surprised me by size, but they don't focus on small business development. They don't care about it. And this is what we do here. So
Do you think a percent rate would make any impact on the number of applications or people that we can lend to?
well, so 2 further things, and then I'll shut up and let you guys decide what you want the rates to be. One is that over the last 2 years, and Sean and I have this conversation every time somebody contacts us, is we are not undercutting banks with this rate. We are supporting banks at this rate. We require businesses to be turned down from a bank or not get the full amount of funding, and then we do a partnership type loan. So we're not undercutting banks. Most of our referrals are coming from banks. And if they were worried that we were taking money away from them, I don't think we'd be getting those referrals. And also, the biggest, and this is probably a stupid argument, but the biggest annoyance we face as staff is everybody wants grant money. Everybody wants grant money. And, yeah, who doesn't? I want a grant too. But being able to come back and say, well, we don't have any grants, but we do have 4% interest under these guidelines. They're like, oh, okay, we had this one business I don't want to name, he'd been after me for 6 months for a grant to be able to pay the wages of somebody who wants to hire. I understand it's a business risk, blah, 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 he wanted it covered. It's not gonna get a grant. I was out sick, Sean returned, or I asked Sean to return his last call, Sean's like, you're just not gonna get a grant, but we have loan money at 4%, he's like, oh, I'd be interested in that. So I think it's an attractive step down from grant to a low interest rate that businesses still find value in.
Can I ask just a question, because it was brought up a couple of times, I think the higher interest rate, potentially more money to loan out. Do we not have enough money to loan out at this point?
I think
Is all our money consumed by loans at this point?
no, we have, well, 950,000, we have loan on hand.
loans. We
Yeah.
never, in a situation where everything makes sense, we have had the dollars to loan someone, some entity.
A couple of years ago, we had to go get some more IMP money here.
Yes,
But it's available, I guess is my thing.
Yeah, right now. it is.
yeah, right now it is, yeah.
And
With
that's
our
what I'm
last
saying,
loan,
you know,
we're good.
if we're talking about, we need that extra percentage, whatever it may be, 0.5%, full percent, 3%, whatever the number ends up being. To fund more loans, I don't know, I'm trying to put that together with
Well,
our reality here.
If we increase our reserve, that does take money out of our general check. That's what we use when we're trying to
I
buy
got you, I
properties to
understand,
then have to sell to redevelop.
understood.
So
So,
those are different accounts.
okay,
Yeah, so this money stays in loans forever. It never gets diverted to the other stuff. The fund income is what funds the,
other stuff, right, so we would have more fund income if the rate was higher.
no,
You'd keep that always in the loan.
yes, anything, any interest amount for that a loan fund gets has to go into that loan fund. We don't get to keep the interest return.
Okay,
Now, what's the cost of future monies? I mean, if we need to go take more, is it gonna be 2% instead of 1%?
Well, also, I think I'm,
I don't
we
think
did have to get more money, but I think we are probably approaching our ideal level, you know, in terms of what our total portfolio is. You know, we're at total now, we're at 7 million plus. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that sheet with me. We're at 7 million plus. A little bit more than that. Again, with good management, we'll have that in perpetuity. We'll be able to do those 15 loans every single year. And that's what we do for lending. And I think that's a good amount that allows us to have that impact that I mentioned, but yet also allows us to focus on other things. You know, my big goal for this year is to do more in the property redevelopment thing. With Lindsay and Sean on board, you know, my involvement in those 15 loans each year, we're probably gonna be less and less, and they'll do more and more. That frees up my time to do more of that stuff. And so I think we're approaching a pretty good level for us. Again, as long as we continue to operate the way we operate. Which
So
I
the
think is,
infrastructure that you have is right. You're probably at 90% of where you could be,
I think so.
right? So
Yeah.
you'd have to redo the infrastructure or increase it somehow with staff or machinery. If you wanted to go to
Yes, if we
18
wanted,
or 20 loans.
if
a
we
year.
want to do more than that, then
So-
yes, then we'd be talking about, we need a new person and then we
Yeah.
need to go out and then, you know, and then,
Because right where
then the
you
issue
are is doing
is-
very well.
right, and then the issue is then now we have to make more loans. And then are we,
Chases the tail.
yeah, then are we chasing loans?
Yeah.
You know,
Which we don't want to do.
right,
Right. Okay, well, it's been a good discussion.
so
So what's unemployment in the county now? Is it 4 something, 3 something,
I think the last number I saw was 4.1.
right? And so I think the last time we were at full employment in the county was probably around 4%. That's all the people that wanted to work. So you're at almost at full employment in the county, so and you're at the level you want to be with loans and service, right in the right spot. Now, if you raise the rate, does that slow down borrowing?
No. I don't think it does.
No.
So you're
I have a question.
not gonna have that big a problem.
What was that?
Go ahead, Rita.
Scott, 'cause
Yes.
my concern, and I, this county should be so appreciative of the hard work that Glenn is, and the fight that he's enduring, with, trying to keep the rate at where he's trying to keep the rate at, and I appreciate his fire and what have you. My question to you, Scott, I don't know about, the banks that you represent, but I know in dealing with, commercial lending and business lending, banks are tightening up really, really tight right now. They're kind of, commercial lending is getting really tight in terms of commercial properties. So, and business loans and what have you are also getting really tight, right? So I just, is that the case in our area? Because I know in New York City and other areas, that's the case. It may not be in Delaware County. Is that the case in Delaware County? Do you know?
In my lending, it is. A lot more scrutiny, a lot more detail is needed.
Right.
More thought process, business plans that are very detailed with lots of explanation on where numbers came from and expenses.
Right.
Currently using the idea that you have the revenue and double the expense, and if that works, well, okay, we'll keep looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's getting a little bit tighter to lend.
Yes.
Right. So I think that I get it where Glenn is coming from, but I think that we need to plan not just for the right now. We need to be planning for what's coming down the pike, right? And I think that we're going to get more demand for IDA funding because the banks are tightening up their belts. Okay, so we should start planning a little inch up so we can have that reserve so that we can serve that market that we'll need. Otherwise, we're going to lose the jobs. We're going to lose these companies because they're not going to get the funding from the local banks.
Right. And the question I haven't asked Glenn out of this meeting is, of the 295,000 that I think we're going to be writing off in the next 12 months,
Right.
what are our reserves for each of those different loans? Couple of them, we probably have enough. Do we have enough reserve for another one of the relationships that we'll be writing off? And do we need to increase our rate to build a little bit more cash to cover those reserves?
Correct.
So
So I'm sorry, one more thing. I'm sorry, Glenn. I'm sorry, 'cause I can't see you. So I don't know if you looked at bankruptcy rates going up, right? Repos going up. Credit card default rates going up. Okay, so all those kind of things kind of impact because these bankruptcy rates, these foreclosure, these repos are people, and these people own businesses, right? So I see a default, or a greater default than the ones that we think that we're going to have, and we need to have those reserves to break even at the very least. I like to have a cushion. That's just me, because I've been on the other end where I haven't had the cushion, and it's very expensive not to have that cushion. And in order to serve, our community better, I think having that cushion would help us do that. That's all I want to say.
All right, that's fine. So if we could go back to the loan report and we can discuss some of the at-risk ones. And if I miss one, Scott, feel free to add it in.
There's really only 4 of them. 3 of them are one credit.
Right.
13, 14, and 15.
Yeah, so 13, 14, and 15, they are made out of the Millennium Fund.
Okay, all right, and what is?
And 37 on the IDA, or L37 on the LBC is out of the LBC loan fund account that was established by grants from USDA.
Okay.
All right.
So our write-offs are not gonna impact our borrowed funds.
So then, and
Yeah, and that's why we've utilized those funds are our risk-taking funds. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
right,
Okay.
and as everybody just discussed what the future potentially looks like. It looks like there'll be more people coming to reach out to us because of the banks tighten up. That makes us more accessible. So I don't have a problem leaving it for, I just wanted to have a discussion of what everybody's opinion was about it. And I think we're in great shape. I think we're probably better shape than a lot of them.
Let's stay there.
All right.
If we do stay, we're not mandated to honor a full 12-month period with that interest. We can go, we can change it to
No.
2 months down the road.
No, we
Yeah,
can't.
that's-
These meetings are recorded, you can just put play and you ask what I think each month.
We do realize that you're always last to raise your hand, so, you know, it will be a situation where it was 6 months ago when we should have done something.
I look forward to doing it every month.
You don't have to be the smartest fool, but you could be the slipperiest.
Right. Okay,
All right. Well, that was good.
good discussion.
Yes, it was. Super.
I learned a lot.
Okay,
So the outcome being,
Stay where it is.
Yeah, nobody making a motion to
No
change.
decision.
all right,
You won.
You said we.
we'll see.
Don't you
Now I
think
gotta
that feel good?
we need a motion on that. Since Glenn, since there's no change, do we need a motion?
No,
No,
Okay. You want to do, what do you want to do about the website compliance?
Well, we don't have the screen, so.
We're
we're
gonna
gonna have to
table
take
that for a
till
month.
next time, Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
sure, the only of these folks, they've now endured nearly an
Oh,
hour and a
yeah,
half
fair enough.
of our,
Oh, we're,
Back and forth.
we're fine.
I know it's entertaining, but
Is
really,
there-
sign up for this entertainment.
Can I just ask on the website, is there a 3-minute thing you can do to just tell us where you're at?
yes, so I have the website for the IDA built. I actually need to get a headshot and a brief bio from you, so. if you
Just
can-
Photoshop.
Yeah. I pulled something from Facebook and it's blurry and everything, but,
We'll find you one when you wore the kilt.
yeah. But, so the website, the bulk of the compliance items are now on the new website. It's going to be IDA, LDC plus economic development, so there's more to it than just IDA. It's not launched yet, just because I'm trying to get the last of the items on, and then we'll launch it and replace the existing website with the new one. Oh, yeah, I mean, I can, you know,
That's all right.
I can show you, just
Yeah,
get an
he's
idea.
got a beta
I
version.
didn't know if you were gonna show us something that was okay in 6 months from now.
Oh, no, we're,
Okay.
you know, if we can get these things together, we're like 4 to 6 weeks out from launching it.
Understand?
the bio you have for me, can you send me a copy of it?
Sure.
We'll put it back on the agenda for next month.
I'm no longer just
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Dan Wayne, if you don't give your bio to Sean by next week, I'm gonna write it.
Orange, Michael.
And for the headshot, we're gonna use a picture of you from the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Which one? In the Shire or outside the Shire?
That's whether I get the bio or not.
Glenn, do you want to go into executive session for
Yes,
this?
for this one we do.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the sale of a piece of property and the financing thereof. And if you could give us,
Couple of minutes.
we won't be long.
I'll move.
Okay, thank you.
You have your motion from Florida.
I got a motion, second. Okay,
I was in your position.
all right.
Hold on just a moment, please.
Steve, Mike. Start off with a couple of minutes each, and if our two people show up or not, I'll save them for the end. But primarily leave a lot of time for questions, because I think that would be the most efficient way of doing this in 15 minutes.
Okay,
Answer the questions.
we'll do that.
We'll hold off on the resolution.
Well, no, we can do the resolution.
Okay, okay.
That's fine.
So are we back up live?
We're recording.
All right, we're back out of public, out of executive session. And during the executive session, we discussed the sale of a property in Andes that we own. Can I have a motion to move forward with the sale and issuance of a mortgage on that property?
So moved.
Second.
Second, any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And I think this is a great ending for that project.
Yeah, we've had it long enough.
Yep. Okay, we'll jump out of the agenda here and talk about the proposal that we have on the hitching post in Grand Gorge.
We appreciate your time. I'm going to start out by giving a quick opening. Jeannie will have a few words, but most of you want to hear questions. To begin with, we understand that this is a uniquely difficult time for small business such as ours. We come from a 59-year history on my part of running a small business that was a pioneer business that helped to establish the East Village on the Lower East Side. It's what we do, is we work in small, impoverished neighborhoods and turn them into successful arts community. I built 2 museums, worked with my father to build Theater 80 and built William Barnacle Tavern, which was on the list of world's best bars and was covered around the world. We've been on the History Channel, Travel Channel, Smithsonian Magazine. And we understand that this property has had problems. We've been doing a lot of research and found out that before the present owner, it actually was a very successful place.
Yeah.
But Richie had health problems, but more than that, not to badmouth him, I'm very fond of him, but he did not do a number of things he should have done to be successful. In the past, for example, during hunting season, the hitching post opened at 4 a.m. to cater to the hunting community. That's the way we do business. We work 18, 19-hour shifts to run our 3 businesses. And we also diversified, at the time that we diversified our businesses into New York, 75 comparable theaters had closed because of hyperinflation. So what I did was I opened the Museum of the American Gangster. It was the second museum I built. And through that, we grew our economy by 800%. And we're going through a second building phase when the state of New York allowed a predatory company to buy our debt, which had been incurred by paying my brother's estate his share of the building because he had died a few months before COVID hit. So we lost our previous business, not because we weren't successful, but because we were closed absolutely for 2 years. All of our 3 businesses were in hospitality, and we've built that into our addressing how to build this business to accommodate this new reality that we might be dealing with events that will close the business to outside and through the museums. We expect to have a gift shop that the produce of this folk life museum will be able to by itself pay the very small payments on this small mortgage. I'm going to turn it over to Jeannie and then to questions. Thanks.
And again, thank you for having us here. With respect to jobs, we're expecting to hire approximately 25 people the first year. And then as we grow, should be more. It'll also give opportunities to craftspeople, builders, and to show their wares or expose interest in the crafts. We also will be working with the University in here, in terms of having, a tavern. And then separate from that, which is a for-profit, situation. Then the museum, will be an entirely different, endeavor. So each will be paying rent, separately. They can also complement each other, obviously, because visitors would come to the restaurant and vice versa. But we would not be relying on only the one, just from past, sorry.
I also should mention this museum, it would be a not-for-profit. In the last weeks before we lost our theater, the federal government stepped in and in 5 days, created okayed our not-for-profit status. The New York City Council on the Arts had asked the mayor to intervene. He refused to intervene, so that not-for-profit had raised $9,000 in 2 weeks. They have unanimously decided to change their purpose to be the not-for-profit for the museum we're building. So we've already raised $9,000 towards the rent through the museum. Shall we go to questions?
Yes.
Oh, so if you have any questions, I think that.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you what. You are aware that there's a current debt against this property to us.
I'm glad you asked that question, because if this property goes to auction, it's very possible that that debt will not be paid. If, on the other hand, we're able to buy it with a mortgage, then at closing, that debt is satisfied. It's paid back to your.
And there's also, unbeknownst to us, we found out that there was an alleged first mortgage on this property.
Right, and the 200.
We assumed
Price, we'll pay both of them.
we thought that we were in the first position.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have? So you're going to clear up both of those?
Exactly, at closing, both of those debts are satisfied. I believe as a matter of law, but certainly they'll be done contractual.
Okay.
How did you come to your purchase price?
The present owner named the price. We've done comparables and found that the combination of location and the amount of property, it's actually below present market.
And a structural engineer?
We've done walkthrough. We haven't been able to hire a structural, because we were trying to do this before it's foreclosed on, and we are coming from, we have really limited funds, after literally 59 years of our life, everything's taken from us, and we've committed our last money now. We put $10,000 as a down payment, and we have a few hundred, we have about a little over 10,000 more towards the purchase. But we don't really have a lot to do that.
Right.
But in the walkthrough, there wasn't, I should say that among my backgrounds, I'm a master boat builder as well as a lawyer. And I didn't see rot. I did a careful examination as a craftsman, and there's no signs of water damage. The roof is sound.
If I could also speak to
Yeah.
that, because we do have slightly more. But also I have annuities, whatever, which I can, and I'm planning to actually, like at closing or days before closing, however it is to release. And can she not hear me?
I think that's just background noise.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
Is to be able to put some money into escrow for the first year, if that's or of the loan, whatever it is, that that you'd be satisfied, feel safe, that as we would be starting up the first year, we would be, at least the tavern would be making money during the first year and so on. But at least if you could be satisfied that, yeah, the first year.
Yeah, for taxes and mortgage. And also, I should say, I was the chef at our tavern several times in our career. So as we get started up, we have the actual talents we're building. What wasn't on St. Mark's Place, we were listed as one of the world's best bars. And it was because of what the talents we brought to it.
From a demographics standpoint, you're comfortable with.
Oh, the first time I went there and I saw the bus to Oneonta pass by, I should say my uncle was the town doctor in Stanford. And I said, Richie, how close are we to Stanford? He said, oh, we're about 15 minutes. I said, whatever will take this place. Because the college community, the ski community, it is the place that should be the front door to Roxbury. And at this point, it's amazing that it hasn't been developed yet to the point that it should be. I think that it is where we were on the Lower East Side. When I first moved to New York when I was 9, the sidewalks on St. Mark's Place were all ground glass, just like the Bowery. And we realized that we should be the front door to the West Village, which is where all the small theaters were. We built Theater 80. I started paying taxes at 9. And within 10 years, we had 70 licensed bars on St. Mark's Place. Having a cultural center brought the place up. And I think that we're uniquely qualified to create a cultural institution that will work with what's going on already at Roxbury to bring up this part of Delaware that really needs the lift. More than that, I think that we have the hands-on ability to train the staff so that long after we're gone, there'll be a generational improvement on the employment in that neighborhood. And that we'll be able to create among people who are living there an understanding of the hospitality industry and use their folk crafts and traditions to build a strong neighborhood.
The previous owner, current owner, I guess, was operating this as a tavern and a restaurant.
Yes.
He was unsuccessful.
For a variety of reasons that we.
What difference would you make to make it successful
We wouldn't
in
have-
the same building?
Exactly. If you look at his early work there, he was successful, but the place became overrun with his animals. After his illness, apparently the place smelled of cats. Is what we heard from neighbors. And
And also he has long COVID.
he has long COVID, so.
Continuous, lung issue.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing is diversifying the menu. One of our aspects of our taverns was making Breton crepes, which is an extraordinarily efficient way of producing good food fast. I also am introducing a fusion cuisine where everything from the roast beef and Yorkshire pudding that I grew up making in an Anglo-Irish family to vegan fare for the tourists. But basically, that meat and potatoes neighborhood, just like being open at 4 a.m. for hunting, is to attract both tourists through fusion cooking and the meat and potatoes, which that made it successful back in the day. We also, our taverns were very family oriented. The idea of a tavern being a place where you're comfortable to bring your family. It's a very big part of our tavern in Manhattan. I think it's what's needed here. We don't need roadside bars. We needed places that people go in the evening and be comfortable with the families. And that's certainly in our tradition.
Do you have an appraisal in the building?
No, we don't.
We don't.
Yeah, because we,
I for one, and I'm one voice here. But I for one feel strongly that we need to get an appraisal on the building.
we have
Um,
so far, sir, because, well, we have been going to the banks and the banks usually insist on doing their own. And we didn't know if you also, whether it's required that the lender do it.
we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I would make it a requirement of going any further. With you, in all honesty, I think we need to verify the sale price of that building and whether it's within reason. It's, I mean, it makes your business plan, be on kind of a razor's edge. And I think, I know the current owner bought it, what, 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago? At a much lower price.
Right, yes.
And I'm, in my mind, I'm saying, well, what happened to that building? I mean, I understand the real estate increased or in the area, but not that much.
Well, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, our property went in about 15 years from 4 million to 15 million in New York. But it's a different economy.
We're in a different world.
But yeah. And I think that, from what we've seen with the comparables, that are not in as good, it's in a uniquely good position on the highway. But definitely, especially if, one of our considerations is trying to beat the foreclosure, because I know that wouldn't be good for either of us. And I think when it comes to finding a buyer that would be able to, one, get your investment back, but two, guarantee that the building would be managed differently. I think that we're people to go to, so. But we appreciate it. Yes.
I have a question. Where did you get your comparables?
Oh, Gene?
It's
Uh,
from a
Ray
gentleman, and I,
Poochie's friend, you know.
yes, but I cannot remember his name. He's real estate.
We
I
can
believe,
email them to you
yeah.
directly.
Yeah, I put them in.
Comparables are in the.
I put the
Hang
comparables
on,
in
I'll
the,
find it for you. Okay,
Okay.
you're gonna get them.
I appreciate that, yeah.
yeah, but he's a real estate person, he's real estate.
Remember which tab they were in?
Uh,
For
Contracts and credit scores?
no,
Yeah,
it would be, it is under comparables. Oh,
I've been a real estate broker 52 years in Stanford, which is the neighboring town to Smedway. I know your property really well.
In fact, our lawyer is in the building that was my uncle Everett Foreman's home. So when we meet with my lawyer, it's in the room I used to sleep in when I would come to.
Who's your lawyer?
It's Paul. Gene will give you his last name, but he's
Madison.
Paul Madison.
Paul Madison.
Yeah, so I know that building well.
Here's one.
Jim.
So, but, yeah, Maria.
Jim, so there's a first lien on this?
But that's a discussion.
Well, currently,
Yes.
we thought we were in a first position.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, this other person stepped out of the woodwork claiming that he was in first position.
Mhm.
The attorney that we had do the closing for us when we did the mortgage,
Mhm.
is no longer around the area.
What is the gentleman that's claiming that he has first position, how much is his mortgage?
Oh, Florida, by memory, it's like 73,000.
I think it's Yeah.
Somewhere between 73, 77,000.
Okay. And what's the property worth?
That's what we're trying to establish.
Because it may be worth, us- if it's worth more than that, it may be worth us satisfying the person now we're in first position, right? If,
Yeah.
if the numbers work.
Yes.
And this way, we don't run the chance of our mortgage being wiped out in case of a foreclosure, no?
Yeah, that is a problem, and I think that's why we gotta verify the value of that building.
Yeah, we
before we-
verify it and
Before we go any further.
absolutely, and then
But to me, that's our next step.
I agree. 100%.
Anybody else have questions?
I just want to introduce David Smith, who's the auditor as well. Many of you know his work from the Round Barn and a number of the places nearby. And
And Ed Griswold.
Ed Griswold.
No,
From the, yes, City Foundation.
The one question I would have is, with the extra time that it will take to establish the value, is it possible to approach the trustee for the court? Find out, because I think it's in the community interest for us to be able to try this instead of going right to auction, which would be a loss to both the community and to the lender.
I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think we need to do, from my standpoint, we need to get a,
Value.
and work with it that way.
You do this or do you do that?
Ronnie Ridgeway, only on in New York.
Sorry?
Yeah, I
Ronnie
think-
Ridgeway.
Sean will get in touch with
Oh,
you guys after
great.
the
I
meeting
really appreciate
with
that.
next steps.
Appreciate it.
We'll
Thank
work
you.
through that.
Since they've come out, is this possible to have a few
Mhm.
with, Mr. Griswold and Mr.
Yeah, since they came this way,
Appreciate it.
absolutely.
Uh,
Okay, first, I apologize for being late. I had in my calendar 12:45.
And that was right.
Oh, okay. I was driving around town wasting time, not the.
Probably went by you 3 times, I didn't say the next time.
You were the one doing donuts and circles? I met this couple, about a month ago, and, I kind of hit it off and became friends or associate, whatever. And, I had them invited over to my house to, talk about mutual interests and things of that nature. I'm relatively new to this whole area of Delaware County. In fact, prior to 2015, I never heard of Delhi. I lived in southern Dutchess County. And I became very uncomfortable, with the crowdedness and the congestion. And I searched out a realtor, say, can you find me some land? And it's not more than 2 hours from the Newburgh Beacon Bridge. And he found a piece on Federal Hill 2. I drove up, looked to my left and fell in love. So here I am. I'd like to introduce myself a little more than just someone new to Delhi. I'm also a member of the Delaware County Regional Innovation Council. And this is of a lot of interest to the council in terms of the kind of businesses we bring in. Does it make our neighborhood better? Does it make it neutral? Does it improve it? And I'm gonna have a couple more comments on that as we go a little further. I'm also president of the College Foundation at Delhi. And we maintain a fund or funds for and personal property to use to apply for student assistant and college initiatives. We own Bluestone, we own the golf course, and we own Riverview, which is a student housing facility. I'm also a member of the Delaware Chamber of Commerce. A former teacher. I had about a 25-year career in public education. I got out relatively early in 94, through a retirement, and by 95, I quit retirement and started my second career, which, since then, I'm a wealth planner and a wealth manager. I cannot speak for Jeannie's and Lorcan's risk profile. I don't know anything about it, and I'm not skilled in that area.
Yeah.
But I have made some observations in this particular area. And I've noticed that, and probably you did too, that young people tend to emigrate to other areas where they think they can, or they perceive they can have better futures and better opportunities. Most small business in which I became associated with and had discussions with don't even offer their employees access to salary reduction pre-tax plans, which is a head scratcher to me. Many young people learn better in, I'm going to say, alternate educational programs, and that are what I call more authentic learning. And I was impressed by some of the programs that are planned by Lorcan and Jeannie. I believe many relationships can be made among other business owners, nonprofits, and schools, and that would enhance the employment opportunities and provide other pathways, maybe even better pathways, for young people's successful futures. There's also a need in this area for mentors, role models, people who are in business and have been successful. It is my opinion that Lorcan and Jenny not only understand these observations and opinions, but their business, they want their business to be an integral part of this collective initiative that addresses the issues. As a regional institute like you are, by providing needed financial assistance to help businesses attain their goals, you're not only investing in Jeannie and Lorcan, you're investing in Delaware County. I would entertain questions. I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer them, but I'd be happy to attempt to.
I think we should let the next gentleman speak.
Hi, how are you all doing? I'm just I'm a local potter. I live in Breakabeen, which is not Delaware County, as you all know. But I've been doing the Packatack Market down in the Round Barn for probably almost 30 years. And I just met these people this year. And we've been talking about, you know, crafts and their whole museum concept. And personally, I'm very kind of excited by it, because I see crafts and people working with the same materials that the ancient people work with is a real avenue into kind of a relating to history. What I'd like to do, really, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I brought a few bits of pots, and I've got, which I think are very simple things, but it really ties into what they're doing. They don't look like much. I don't know if you want to kind of hand these around, but if you hold it in your hand, and what you're doing here, you're really shaking the hand of a revolutionary era potter in the Albany area. And what he was doing salt glaze pottery, which is an ancient, well, not ancient, like 1500s German style. What they would do, fire up the kiln 2300, and they would shovel in rock salt, and that would vaporize in the kiln, and that sodium vapor would combine with the clay to make a glaze. And what, I'm sorry, all jumbling, oh, here we go. This is what I mean, this is the classic, salt glazed look with and the inside is glazed with a local clay, they call it Albany slip, up and down the Hudson River. That fired low temperature is like an earthenware clay pot, but fired high with a glaze. So they were using all these local materials, and what that would have been, if I can show you here, you can see it's got a little gloss on it, and you can see that would have been right there. So what the guy would do is take clay, smush it in his hand, and boom, because just the way it fires, they couldn't fit on a shelf. They would break trying to get them off. So these would be all stacked up. So around, this was a big pot. So around this might have been like 10 of these, but you can feel them. And that excites the hell out of me. I'm a potter. But I think anybody interested in history, I mean, this kind of hooks you into somebody's life. Because there he is, or she, probably, I'm sure it was a he, but you know, whatever. There is right there. And I think when you like bring people into the museum, and if we are doing like this is a pit fired pot, which I made, which is so similar to what the Native Americans would have been doing. You know, I mean, it's all, nothing has really changed. So by working with these more handmade skills, you're not working with the same skills that the people 200, 300, 400 years ago worked with. And that I think is a little highway into their life. And I think that's what they're trying to do. And I think that is important, and that's why I'm here. Thank you. And I'll leave you alone now. If I could put my political scientist hat on for 30 seconds. One of the other goals for a folk life museum, so I think we're living in times, whatever your political persuasion, that are extraordinarily dangerous for the country. And I think that through that the answers aren't political, they're cultural. And I think the idea of going back to a museum that shows how together a diverse group of people built this country literally from the ground up is why I think that we're doing what we're doing. Thank you.
I understand what you're trying to do, and I think it's commendable. I get it. But I personally still come back to, we've got to confirm the valuation of that building to make sure that the finances work. Because what we have to look at is whether the project will pay for itself and enable you to repay our loan. Otherwise, we're just going to walk away from it.
No, in fact, I think that the person who did the comparables might be competent to do the appraisal. We'll look into the appraisal. We'll speak to them. But thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you. Can I have that back? It looks like a stupid little piece of clay. But thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you again.
I wanted to talk.
Have a great weekend.
I'll talk. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I think every time we played football against Delhi, it was an Oliver.
Yeah.
Always.
Always an Oliver.
History all the way along. Only Oliver had a whole school of kids.
Okay. We are still working our way through our agenda.
Right, so do we need a motion to go into the executive session?
Okay. Go
All
ahead.
right, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Well, you know.
Okay, we're back out of executive session.
It's in the package.
It's in the packet, so they have it.
So I printed
Um,
a couple.
So what we didn't get
for anyone
is
who doesn't.
what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It just says site plan.
Yeah, so we'll walk through it.
And the last one, right, we just got this. So this was, I was asked, this is the development, redevelopment. Part of the mission of this board, asked through our shared services. To take a look at the parcel, evaluate it for suitability for redevelopment and figure out a way to make it happen. I'll be brief, it's been a long meeting. The packet includes one just existing condition, the first sheet. A look into the zoning, regulations and limitations on the second sheet. And the last two sheets, demonstrate what I'm proposing, which is largely because the entirety of the project or the parcel, is within the 100-year floodplain. So it's currently, to develop it in any way would require a floodplain development permit, flood proofing of any buildings, or you can't just go and fill there.
And our
In order to
neighbors in and the concern is everybody in the industrial park is the city industrial park, which is right to the
Immediately.
left-hand side of this. Is concerned that if we raise that property up 4 feet, all that water is just gonna go right onto their property. So how can we develop this parcel in a way that we will actually be able to get a floodplain development permit and not negatively impact the other businesses in the industrial park or the rest of the community? And the idea was if we can take basically, we dig out the back portion of our parcel that's not covered by the conservation, use that dirt to put on top. Now, at the same time we're raising that, we're lowering another piece. And while it probably won't be 1 for 1, there's gonna be a mathematical equation that gets us to, digging down and putting on top. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Why are you here, Sean?
Yeah, I know. So, essentially what Glenn is suggesting, that solves the problem, really. Do we have, so the parcel just under 9 acres, and by creating a stormwater attenuation area to the north, maybe we can establish somewhere 5, I think I said about 5.5 acres that's out of the floodplain. And therefore, in order to do that earthwork project, that requires a floodplain development permit and demonstrating by engineering that there's no net rise, that you're not impacting any downstream neighbors. But then that gets that upfront area out of the floodplain, and then a new project could come in, no longer would require that process, just would go through a typical site plan review process and turnkey from there.
We have an estimated cost.
If you guys like this concept, our next step would be to get some proposals from engineering firms, what the engineering is gonna cost, which will tell us what the development costs will be.
Look into
Absolutely.
Now, all that is still back there that we put in. You can see this,
It's my understanding it's virgin farmland.
Yeah. It is.
at some level that is correct.
You're right.
Over the top of the concrete street.
So from the topo, from the topography as it sits now, I think is how they would establish, begin the base point for that engineering, but I don't know that.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you keep looking into it, we can only say no when we figure out the cost and
Correct.
not worth the parcel.
And then the last page was in discussions with Glenn, we just expanded the study area to go out to the highway there, so it would include the adjacent IDA owned parcel, which has a house on it with a long-term resident in it. But then also includes a couple other parcels that were at one point involved with the buyout, but didn't follow through with it. There's one or two structures on there.
So Sydney went through with the buyout? or
Not
did-
on this piece. They initially were involved, but they didn't go through the process.
So lot one and the second plot is the same. You just
We
incorporate.
just, the same concept, same process, just, yeah, picking up,
The other parcel.
that would require the acquisition of those little parcels.
Is the
And the
purpose,
displacement of the residents of that house.
it's a great, more shovel ready idea.
Yes.
Correct.
The idea would be to turn that lot, which is kind of hard to market, it's floodplain still, what can you do there? Into an actual, we're gonna lose some acreage, but 5 acres of shovel-ready property.
Right, right.
You're interested, here you go.
And
That's right there.
Our future goal. the
That's what we,
future is Getting properties ready.
yeah,
In the existing,
No, you know, it's gonna still live in that little yellow house.
yes, they do,
They do.
yes,
Okay.
because we trim their trees once a year. Well, our trees that lean over onto their property.
And by we, you mean someone else.
Yeah, not me.
the
I
existing
don't
site's
see
full,
pipelines.
right? There's no lots
I
available. in the
stay on the
existing site.
ground or below it. I don't go above.
There's no lots available in the existing,
Industrial park, there is one IDA owned available vacant, but it's, I think, just under 2 acres or.
2 acres.
2 acres, something.
Yeah,
And there's a potential person.
Yeah.
There's been someone looking at it for a while.
So what,
And this could, I mean, of the 5 acres, once that it's engineered, that 5 acres could be 2 parcels, or it could be 3 parcels. It has some flexibility as to, when a suitor comes forward, yeah.
and how much earth do we need to bring it, was it?
2 foot above.
so we had an estimate before of doing, a footprint of a building. And it was gonna,
It's a fairly large number.
yeah, it was around $200,000 to raise the whole piece. That was the full 9 acres up to,
Which you can't do.
we couldn't do it. But it was like $200,000 to raise the whole thing up to that. That was 5 or 6 years ago, well,
Right along,
probably even more than that.
right along River Street, it's close to floodplain, it's within a foot or two. But as you go farther back into the parcel, it can be just a drop
And if
off.
we did the whole thing, we have to make other wetlands, don't we, in place of it, but
Right.
filling in the floodplain.
Right, yeah.
That would be
And that,
cost prohibitive to do
right,
that.
yeah,
Very
so,
much.
That makes sense. I think we should-
Regular section?
really,
Yeah.
regular session? So I think we should go forward and at least get it.
what are we doing with the property involved? Are we moving forward with its cleanup and carrying foundations out? Or are we
That's
just-
another discussion.
Because we're on with that site rep. For whoever it is.
I think,
Lunchtime discussion.
yes,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're not.
we still have more work to do on that before we're ready to bring something
On the
forward.
parcel or on the discussion around the problem?
Both.
Okay.
Glenn and I had a meeting yesterday with them,
Okay.
and we need to do some
Go to
thinking.
executive session.
Okay.
Glenn, project updates.
Just the only thing I'm gonna add you to is, We closed on interim agreements for Clark Companies and Lactalis related to their pilot agreements. It was just, they're interim because it's just rushing through basic paperwork to get it closed before the end of the year. Which was, you know, the end of both their corporations' fiscal years. So just to get things in place as soon as possible. Final closing will be later. We've received partial payments for the fees for both. Half of the fee for Lactalis and right around 10% of the fee for Clark Companies.
And you were able to do that to keep the mayor happy with money coming and going and however he wanted. Remember that from last meeting?
He wanted to change
You
the
want
pilot
to
program.
change the payouts.
Yes, we can handle that administratively.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
You wanted less.
Right.
yeah,
less now and more later.
There you go.
but a net less overall.
Yeah.
But, tomorrow never comes.
That's not, that came down
You
the
don't
road.
even get today, man.
All the health trouble I had today.
And the other thing that I had under older new business was I have been working with meeting with this group of mayors that they've got going on of all the mayors in Delaware County. And it's a good group. They're looking at a bunch of different things. They're working together. I brought in a consultant from a firm in Albany to talk to them about doing a shared services study for the 10 mayors. We have a proposal.
Before you go too far, you should see this email that came in while we were in our meeting, which is addressed to all of us, including the mayors too. So we ought to table this till we've all read it.
Okay.
Very interesting letter.
All right. We'll hold off on that then.
Yep, that would be beneficial.
And any other older new business? I have a motion to adjourn the IDA.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And
Yeah. Right in there.
the LDC meeting is not going to take long at all. Do you want to do that or do you want to just eat now?
No, let's do the LDC.
Okay, then we need to open the LDC meeting. We need to do the election of officers. Scott, you wanna?
Okay, thank you. And so the first would be the election of a chairman. Jim's been it for 29 years. He'd like to go one more year. If someone would nominate him,
So moved.
so moved.
By
For a second?
30.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion for the chairman of the LEC? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Jim, you're chairman.
Well, thank you again. We need to do an election of vice chair.
How about we do
Done.
this slate as the IDA?
Yeah.
Make a
Yep.
motion in one ballot, we're done.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay, I heard Florida move that. Did you second that?
I'll second that.
Wonderful.
There we go.
okay, all in favor.
Oh,
All right, we need a motion to approve the annual housekeeping resolution and admin policies.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I forgot to ask for discussion.
He nodded his head.
He got it.
The changes in the bylaws were basically this.
Same.
What was done in the
Similar to what we have.
So moved. Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
And again, the board goals and self-evaluation, the same as we had with the IDA.
The goals were a little bit different, more speaking more directly just to what the LDC's mission is financing of businesses and projects. And
So moved.
Second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I need an approval for the draft minutes from December 8th.
So moved.
Second, all, discussion? All in favor? Financial report, treasurer's report, and the invoices.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any other old or new business? Then let's eat lunch.
Or are we getting a definitive action on that or no?
On Sandy's?
Denied.
Yeah, so is it gonna be a formal resolution of that?
Someone.
Well, thank you very much.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to deny the Sandy's application.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyway, I have one motion to adjourn the LDC.
So moved.
Second. Oh,
There,
Mike second.
we made it.
One moment.
Thank you, everybody.